Greetings, Resident Evil fanatics. It's getting dark out there. I hope you don't mind that pair of eyes peering through the window. I'm sure they're just trying to watch as well, and so be it. Welcome back to the Residents of Evil. I am here, once again, to share with you some more thoughts, theories, and insights on Resident Evil 8 Village, as there's something strange I'd like to discuss. Previously, we've examined the inspirations behind several concepts in the RE Village trailers, such as this Baba Yaga-inspired character, the cult sigil, Mia's folktale, and the werewolf inspirations behind the Beastmen. It's clear now that this game not only takes strong inspiration from Dracula and Romanian folklore, but also various figures from Slavic paganism, and it looks like we have another. Just recently, Capcom released 3 distinct screenshots of RE Village. One of them in particular has a beast that holds a very strong resemblance to yet another prominent creature in Slavic folklore, in appearance and seemingly in terms of behavior as well. Tonight, we will be exploring the deeper meanings of this creature's inclusion and drawing from its folklore to discover its potential purposes in Resident Evil 8. Before we begin, I want to give special thanks to my friend Tina. Tina lives overseas in the Baltic states. Once again, she was able to provide some authentic info on this creature, as it is quite popular in many Baltic and Slavic regions. Let us begin. Brace yourself, as this one's going to get scary. In a previous episode, we covered the potential inspirations of the Beastmen, as they hold several similarities to Leshi, lichens, and werewolves. There was another distinct creature in the trailers that we never quite explored. Ever since the first trailer, not a whole lot could be speculated about this particular creature, as his appearance is very obscured and brief. But with this new screenshot, a few key hints suggest where his design takes strong inspiration from. Let's take a look at a Slavic forest deity by the name of Leshi. In terms of his appearance, the Leshi is commonly depicted as a heavily bearded man who roams the forest, but he has several qualities that distinguish him from humans. Many aspects of his appearance seem to mimic the life of the forest. His skin is usually quite rigid and rough, like the bark of a tree. His hair and beard are made of living, grassy vegetation of the forest, and in some depictions, his limbs themselves are composed of little twigs. This creature in the screenshot has a similar grassy texture to his hair, with a very similar style of facial hair. In this screenshot, he looks like a more demonic version, and his hair looks like lifeless gray grass. On top of all this, he also carries a large club or cudgel as a weapon. The creature in the screenshot wields a similar but much more menacing club with spikes at the end. All of these things align with the creature in the screenshot quite nicely, but he also seems to share in potential behaviors with the Leshi as well. When this club-wielding beast is in frame, notice how the Beastmen are gathered around him. The Beastmen seem to mimic wolves in their behavior, hunting in packs, but they also rally around this hairy beast as if he is their pack leader. Similarly, the Leshi is a master and guardian of the forest, and as protector, he can command various beasts of the forest to do his bidding for him. For this reason, he is often portrayed as a beastmaster, surrounded by his gray wolves, who serve him with the utmost devotion. He also sometimes has bears at his disposal. This dynamic of a beastmaster wielding a club, commanding beastmen of his own, seems to be closely replicated here in RE Village. Interesting. To better understand how the Leshi aligns with the game's themes, let's dive into its folklore and study its behavior. It is often thought that multiple Leshi creatures exist, each of which are protectors of their own forest. He is extremely territorial and will do everything in his power to fend off threats to his home. Much like how many legends are used to explain misfortune, the Leshi's contentions with each other are thought to have caused various natural disturbances. Each Leshi has the ability to shapeshift into any plant or animal he desires, and grow to the height of the largest tree, or slim himself down to the tiniest blade of grass. You should avoid doing anything that might incur his wrath, such as gesturing disrespect towards the forest or cussing in his presence. He is known to lead travelers astray using illusory magic. Much like the Baba Yaga, he is not an evil spirit outright, but has a rather ambiguous alignment. He sometimes torments travelers through his trickery, but other times he actually guides humans to safety. But he does love causing mischief, so much so that he may unintentionally kill travelers by abusing his various abilities. Tina has provided 3 original stories of the Leshi from the locals of Estonia, which are versions that develop their own nuances in the Baltic states. 2 of the stories describe a local getting lost in the forest and noticing an eerie pattern of the same plants, same trees, and an unnerving silence as the birds stop singing. In both of these stories, the local chants a prayer in order to find their way out of the forest, but in the last story, a young child gets lost in the forest and finds a creature that looks like a gray wolf, but something is off about it, but not in a frightening way. The child just has a gut instinct that this wasn't a real wolf, and approached the wolf to take a closer look, but with every step, the wolf seemed to get more and more distant without moving any of its limbs at all. Eventually, the wolf was gone, but the child understood the right path and was able to return home. Should you ever slip out of his good graces, you can do several things to escape him. You can stand under a tree, remove your clothes, and put them on backwards or inside out, and he shall bid you farewell. Similarly, he also respects you should you wear your shoes on the opposite feet. It is unknown exactly why these things work, but since he loves to create mischief, he probably just wants to laugh at you for a bit. Other ways to defend yourself include showing him the Holy Cross and chanting a prayer. One example of a prayer from Tina's region is this. Chant this loudly, and his illusions should come to a halt. Leshi, I know it is you. Let me out, now. There are several potential reasons why these specific things turn him away, and even why his face looks the very particular way it does. Reminds you of something, doesn't it? These may be easier to understand with a bit of historical context. Slavic paganism, in the early days, revolved around its own unique creation story, essentially its own version of Genesis from the Bible, and with it came its own deities of light and darkness, most prominently the Slavic deities Perun and Veles. It is thought that these 2 in particular were shared between the East Slavs, West Slavs, and South Slavs, and this duality of light and dark is a recurring theme in even the minor deities, so keep that in mind. Slavic paganism would continue to develop unique superstitions and deities in their respective regions. That is, until these beliefs clashed with an insurmountable wave that they could not contain. The wave of Christianity. Each region of the Slavs would come under Christian rule at varying times, and some pagan elements of each region were reinvented and transformed to fit the commands of Christianity to varying degrees. Witchcraft, superstitions, and even the very image of pagan deities were altered to the liking of the church. As you would imagine, Verun and Peles hold very similar roles as the god of Christianity and the devil, respectively, and so these 2 in particular were among the first deities to be overwritten. However, there were also numerous pagan deities that were not swept away by this Christian transformation, namely the minor and tutelary deities, which include the Leshi and the Baba Yaga. So why and how did these figures survive the Christian awakening? A couple possible reasons, but we can only speculate, since first-hand sources of Slavic deities are almost non-existent, with nearly all knowledge of them coming from second-hand accounts during the acceptance of Christianity. Belief in the main pagan deities was easier to recognize and more prominently shared across Slavic peoples and seen as a threat to the Bible's teachings, but finding signs of belief in something like the Leshi was much harder to spot and also may not have been necessarily worshipped in a way that the Christians recognized. There were also resistance efforts by pagans, shamans, witches, and priests who would not bend to the influence of Christ so easily. And looking at the tremendous influence that Slavic paganism still has today on Eastern Europe and in popular culture, it's clear that the intended Christianization of the Slavs was far from absolute and is even considered shallow by some. During this process, though, many of the minor pagan deities were still influenced by Christian ideas, and some were further demonized than their initial concepts, usually in the interest of tying them to the devil of Christian belief. For example, Baba Yaga's nickname has become the devil's grandmother, even though, for Slavic pagan worshippers, there was no such devil. The closest thing to the devil in Slavic paganism is Veles, but remember, his name was scrubbed over with the devil's name, and looking at Veles's association with mischief, magic, forests, and how he sometimes takes the guise of a shepherd, it would make much more sense if Baba Yaga was Veles's grandmother rather than the Christian devil's grandmother. Remember how, in our Baba Yaga analysis, we covered how she absolutely despises all that is holy, such as blessings, prayers, and any other homage to God. Similarly, the Leshi is repelled by the sign of the cross, which is also very likely due to Christian influence. On that same note, take a long, hard look at the Leshi's face, the very distinct look of his beard and facial hair. Does it not remind you of Jesus Christ's face, or at least someone that would mirror God's image, like a disciple or an angel? Perhaps he is a fallen angel or a demon that was cast down from heaven and into the earth's forests, which again demonizes him in a way that Christians could understand as evil. And going back to Veles, Leshis are sometimes thought to be direct descendants of Satan's army, that is, the Satan from Christian belief. But looking at Veles and the Leshi together, they are incredibly similar, both being shape-shifting beings that often take the guise of a wolf, both being beastmasters that rule the forest, and both using illusions and trickery to fool humans. So again, Leshis would be much more fitting as descendants of Veles's army rather than the devil. Now, like many of Capcom's adaptations of folkloric and biblical creatures, the Leshi and Baba Yaga may not be fully implemented with all of their little details, but will instead take the pieces that they need to fit the atmosphere, probably adapting the Leshi into a more brutish beastmaster type of enemy with the moveset of an executioner rather than a mischievous type of enemy. But considering the location, it's inevitable that illusions and getting lost in the forest would be a big part of this game. Hopefully they could bridge the gap between BOWs and the supernatural in a way that respects both ends, as ambitious as that is. So, do you believe this creature is inspired by the Leshi of Slavic folklore? What type of enemy or boss do you think he will be? Let us know what you think in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this in-depth analysis video, feel free to check out my channel. The link is in the description. Recently, I posted a long cinematic analysis video of the Resident Evil Zero novel by S.D. Perry, which really added a ton to Marcus and Billy's character. Another RE analysis will be coming to Residents of Evil next month, and I will also be doing a Toys for Tots charity stream of Resident Evil 4 this Saturday, the 26th at 6 p.m. EST. We'll have some company joining as well, so feel free to stop by. This has been quite a year. It's been an absolute pleasure, everyone. Next year is looking to be pretty crazy for any Resident Evil fan, and I look forward to bringing more of my best content to the table. Until then, happy holidays, and just in case, remember what I told you should you ever set foot in the forest.